So, as a front-end developer, which you have here, I like to inspect things. As a type designer, I don't want this to happen. I want my name in here. So, now we can start. Hi. So, my name is Nico, and you already know my last name, which is Hagenburger. And this is basically everywhere on social media you can find me with that handle. So, I'm working at here as promised. This is a company famous for doing mapping and any kind of location systems, and about 50 other things. So like there are 50 products, and I'm working on a design system to unify that and build web components. So completely different from what I'm doing today. So, this is Edinburgh, a very beautiful city. And this is a very ugly part of the city, but it's still beautiful because it has a lot of nice type in there. So all the street signs, like we have some kind of variations, they look very nice. And we also have like a lot of those old buildings with engravings in there. And also look up, like here, there's the house number. It's also pretty nice. So you can get a lot of inspiration in here. But the best thing is this. I actually have no idea what this company is doing. I took this picture like 2 years ago, but like it's Futura. Futura is the font that amazed me the most when I was a child. And there's a lot of nice Futura signs in here in Edinburgh. But it's even better when you look at the opening hours here. Especially it's open Saturday from 9 a.m. to 6 a.m. If you very, very carefully look at this, you see the 6 is cut horizontally and the 9 is cut diagonally. Have you ever seen this in Futura? This is the original design of the Futura from 90 years ago. I've never ever seen any digital implementation of Futura which has this effect. They're all either like diagonally for both or straight for both. But here in Edinburgh, I found the original one. And actually, I found the same thing when I was a child. There was a delivery truck, Bofrost, if anybody heard of that, and they had like their phone number written like this. So I kind of found like some software to use, and I changed Futura for myself on my computer. That was even before I had internet. But like, hey, I was a font designer. No, actually not, but I just changed the font to a design somebody else made, but at least I got motivated. And it's like those little details which get me motivated. So, if we have the 6 and the 9 here, if I do something myself, of course, I want to have this part in which motivated me the most. So, I made this, and now it looks a bit like the old Futura. So, what I'm using here is a stylistic set, the number 4, and we're CSS conference here, so font feature settings, SS04 on. So we can have this here in CSS. And you see like CSS is related a lot to font design. And we can also have like number 5, which is actually doing it like most of the Futuras look daily like. You can also do it like this. I've never seen it before. It doesn't make sense. It's ugly, whatever. But yeah, you can do this. And of course, this also applies to the 7, even the old Futura. But when I design things, something looks different, like the 4. Doesn't look like a Futura, but of course, then we can also have this one here. And as I'm German, there's like a stroke in the 7 from time to time. And if you have a stroke in the 7, of course, you should support both of the combinations. So there's a lot of fun to do. So, also, I'm German, you might have seen those characters. So we call them Umlaut. And before World War II, it was very, very common that they looked like this. And if you look at the original designs of Futura, actually Futura looks like this as it was designed, not like this. So it's maybe not super useful nowadays as you have all the language support, but when Futura was designed in Germany, it was a German font. So it makes sense to have it like this. But if you just make a design for Germany, you might still want to use something like this. But a very common stylistic set you find in a lot of fonts is changing the lowercase a. So it looks like a D, just cut off a little bit. It doesn't need this stylistic set number 2 everywhere. it changes from font to font. But if you do this, of course you have to do it for the it's called. And maybe for something French, or maybe Swedish. Here, or maybe, have you seen Vietnamese? Where do we have it? Like this? Like this? Or we even have like stuff below. So, let's remove one. All of them need to be done. So if you want to have like a really nice font that works everywhere, Vietnamese is beautiful. Also, like we have this, like the country which is closest to Berlin is Poland. So we have the L with the stroke in Poland, which is not supported by every font, so which has some cute side effects. If you go to Poland, you find things like this. So I found this on the farmer's market, and I think it's super, super cute and makes the things like nice. But imagine you want to design a font and want to sell it like a big company like Google or Facebook, and somebody makes a comment, and this person is Polish or Vietnamese. You cannot fix it like that. So better don't do this. Oh, fuck. So this is like Instagram. I also checked in Poland, and if you look at this N, yeah, this super cute, nice font by this myriad, whatever thing, no, billion dollar company doesn't have a nice font. Maybe they should spend some more money on that. It's worse, like if you go to the Vietnamese. Actually, Vietnam is closer to Berlin because we have this big Vietnamese shopping mall. This is super delicious, but it doesn't look good if you use the original signs. Yes, you can do better. So, coming back to web design. Web design is 95% typography. That was back in 2006 by Oliver Reichenstein, and I think it's still true. So, have you ever seen something like this? That's a button. And how often did you think about, like, I want to fix that? So, for example, if you use uppercase, all uppercase buttons, very often it looks like it's a bit too high because the fonts, they are made going up and down, like you have a G which goes down the baseline, but if you only have the uppercase letters, usually there's a little bit more space below, so it doesn't look balanced anymore. So, as a CSS developer, you want to do this. So, I would say type design is 95% about balancing things out, like buttons, but also like a single character. So, on the left side, you see me like 6 years ago. On the right side, you see me like today. So working over and over and over and over, and slowly things are getting more balanced. And it's a long way to find out. And sometimes you move it pixel by pixel, even though pixel is not the unit you use. But same with the S. The S is the most complicated character you can do because you have two curves that are opposite to each other. And finding the right balance between those two curves, that's a pretty tough job. But there's also the O. It looks a bit better on the right side, but it's very, very slightly. So here you see like 3 characters. It's the A, the L, and the uppercase I. And you see how perfectly the A is balanced to the L? So actually the stem of the A is a little bit thinner than of the L because there's so much other things going on there. You need to reduce the width of the stem a little bit to make it look balanced. So at the end you should not see there's a difference, but it's there. And the I is a bit thicker than the L because uppercase letters should be a little bit thicker because they're bigger. If you have a very big font, you see the S is much thinner than the O. But because there's so much going on, at the end, it gets so dark, you need this. And the E, usually the horizontal bar in the E, it's much thinner than everything else. Something else you need to balance, if you want to have like a very good font, from very thin to very thick. You have a lot of steps in between, and that they all look the same. This is hard to balance. If you look back to Futura, no Futura looks like the other one, the very thin one, the thick ones. But they have been designed over 30 years by different designers, and they didn't use a computer. So, luckily we have the computer, so there's interpolation, so don't need to design all of them. You just like have 1, 2, 3 steps. One step, you can only have one font, but if you have 2, you can have a variation as much as you want. But sometimes you need to have some steps in between. So, typeface design teaches you a lot about balancing. For example, we should activate kerning here. I use the uppercase Y in the U that you see. It only looks balanced if kerning is set on. So, it's a good time for you to become a type designer to learn about balancing things, and your whole designs will be balanced much better afterwards. So, speaking about time. By the way, you know those are emojis. Emojis are Unicode. So basically this is part of type design. So if you just want to design some emojis, you can still be more or less a type designer. So, fonts to design takes a lot of time, and after a while you need to question yourself, are you done? And if you're done, you might want to sell your typeface. But, hooray, there's a 50% off original price. So if you want to sell it and go to one of the major platforms, they really take 50% off. And keep it for themselves. Wow. So like if you ever thought about you're an app developer and Apple takes, I think, 30% as far as I know, this is 50%. Wow. But look at this beautiful 50. That was also in Edinburgh. You might see the reflections in the window, and you can find out where I took this photo like 2 years ago in preparation for this talk. So, if you want to reduce your income, you can go to an online shop and take 50% off. Maybe you need to remove the VAT depending where you are. There are other income taxes and introduction offers. You often see like this 80% off a font. So it's actually 80% minus the 50%, minus the VAT, whatever. Lucky if you get €1 or £1 or anything out of that. But are you a web developer? You can build your own shop. Takes time, but hey, other font designers, they're usually not web developers. You can do such things. You can combine both of the things. So maybe do that. Okay. I found out selling is hard and boring and do all the legal things. So let's do something else. See here, like we have all the weights here, and like, oh, look what you can do here now. We have the variable fonts. Oh, this is something nice to explore. And we can also do other things like the contrast. Oh, you see from good to ugly. So something you can learn about here is like, if you have the contrast, like the horizontal bars, they are thinner than the vertical ones. Everything looks good. But otherwise, it looks really ugly. And one thing to learn, if they're balanced out, it's not they're equal. Usually the horizontal should always be slightly thinner, very slightly. You should not see it, but it should be. And you can do some other things, like here, Helvetica, Frutica, Helvetica, Frutica, Helvetica, Frutica. And you can also like, so this is a very cool example. I found it on the Access Praxis website. There are more examples, check it out. And do some variable fonts or variant fonts, however they're called. So, just a little bit of warning here. I'm procrastinating. And typefaces is never done. There's a lot of things to do. It can always be improved, and there are always like features you can add. Just like a website. So, see like when you have like here this smiley, do you see what happens when I type the parentheses? So, it balances it out itself. That's actually pretty cool. So, OpenType is actually coding. So, I have to do this. I want to position a colon 53 units up in case a parenthesis, the parent right, is followed. That's pretty cool. You can have a lot of rules like this. It's more or less like CSS. You can also like say, if there's either a semicolon or a colon, do the same thing. And maybe, in that case, we want to have more space between, so also move the parent right a little bit to the right, so we have a perfect smiley. So, you're developers. Here's your playground. What you can do is like, you can take an open source font and modify that. Like here, Fire Code has a lot of extras to Fire Mono. There's a little bit of design on top of that, so you don't need to design your whole font. So they have like all the errors like combined. If it's useful or not, I don't know. Maybe you find it, but I think it's amazing what they did. So A typeface from time to time needs updates. You remember what happened 20 years ago? For everybody who's not from the UK? This one happened. All the typefaces need to be updated here. But no, this one stayed the same, this one stayed the same. But again, if you look in here, by the way, if you don't know this box, it's like Control, Command, and Space, and you have access to all of the type features if you're using a Mac. This is pretty cool. So we have the currencies on the left side, and there's, for example, the ruble sign, which changed just recently. So now we have a design for that. Or we have this one here. It's actually not the pound, it's a lira sign used in Egypt, and it used to be used in Turkey, but now they just made their own design. So fonts very often need updates, especially for currencies. But also, like some characters, they grow up. And again, I'm German, so we have the sharp S. And since recently, we have an uppercase sharp S. So we didn't have this for a long while. It was used like 100 years ago, but about 10 years ago, I think, there was a Unicode character defined. And about 1 year ago, it was decided this character can officially be used. And before, it was hard. So now I can write street like this in German. And before, as a workaround, I had to write it like this. And you see, it breaks my slides. So I'm really happy we have this character. And this character is not designed a lot. So if you work on this, you can actually influence how type design will look in future, because there's not a lot of examples. For everything else, you should not get too creative. So the good news is, there's a lot to explore for you. And I love to see your results. Go around in Edinburgh, look at all the beautiful shops, the street signs. There's so much nice typography there. Look at the stones. In England, I know the churches, they have a lot of very nice engravings in there. Just get inspired, or just look at some other websites and find something, or find an open source project. There are so many open source fonts. You can contribute either like the characters of your language you speak natively, or do something else with it. Or maybe this is not a variable font yet, so you can turn some font into a variable font. There's really, really a lot of things to do. You do not need to design the whole thing from scratch, but you can do if you want. And you should do, maybe. So, in case I got you a little motivated today, I hope so. So, thank you.